right, Matt. You look somewhat refreshed from your trip. Sounds like it could have been
I don't know
better.
about that.
Well, maybe not refreshed,
Don't I
but
sound sick a little bit?
yeah, a little under the weather. Maybe you had too much fun up there, too much pace, trying to keep up with everyone, huh? Up there. Um,
Yeah, I had to, keep up with the drinking too, so
oh yeah. Drink
I'm feeling
that
the aftermath of it.
you're definitely embracing the Japanese culture then with the drinking and then waking up early, gotta take care of business type of vibes. So anyway, yeah. Um I know you were able to catch some of the basketball, but we're recording minutes, after now back to back champion UConn men's basketball. So congrats to them. It was not close, the final score at least. This one was pretty close in the first half. I was kind of following the first half, but was able to listen to the game on the drive home, and really that second half run really took over for them. But before we get into the championship game, Matt, why don't we touch on the final four picks first? So UConn obviously survived Bama. That was probably, well, actually not probably, that was definitely their toughest task that they faced in the tournament. Definitely their closest box score at the very least. So yeah, I mean I didn't watch too much of this one, but they definitely got their one battle test, if you wanted to say, scare out of the way. And I honestly thought tonight's game was gonna be a little bit closer, but yeah, I mean it is what it is. They just look too good, so they're able to withstand Alabama there, and then on the flip side, kind of the bigger names, if you wanted to call it. So the NC State Cinderella run unfortunately came to an end, along with my bracket and pick. So weren't able to see that play out the way I wanted it to. But NC State still had a good run. I think Zach Edey just was too much for them. I mean, Zach Edey is too much for a lot of teams, if we're being honest, right? But you know, hats off to DJ Burns and that NC State Wolfpack team for the run that they had as an 11 seed. But yeah, so I don't know if you wanted to touch on those games, Matt, but feel free to chime in if you wanted to say anything.
Well, I think that game, I didn't really follow the Alabama game, but the NC State Purdue, I think that was kind of the matchup that people were really going to tune into. That was the quote unquote marquee matchup with the bigs. And kind of in that one, in our preview, I did mention the key was which big was going to outplay the other. And in a simple fashion, Zach Edey won that battle. To me, it was with ease. DJ Burns, he has a couple of nice plays here and there. He has a nice touch at the rim, but didn't really, I would say, impose his will like how Zach Edey does. And I even mentioned this last week. Although I'm not going to put him as saying he's Shaquille O'Neal, but he has that similar type of feel when he goes on the basketball court in terms of Zach Edey, where he's just the most dominant player on the court. He's not the most athletic, but his size is a factor. And in a college game, that's a huge mismatch. You're not going up against guys like Joel Embiid, 7 foot monsters on the other side. Like most of the time, you're gonna have a solid 6 inches to maybe a foot taller than the guys that you're going up against, and you're just gonna dominate and eat. And although he was going up against Burns, I say he won that battle pretty easily. So you got to tip your hat to those good players, and that's really how I think Purdue moved on to play UConn in the championship. It was the battle of the bigs, and Zach Edey won that.
Yeah, so let's get to the championship game since it did just conclude, Matt. Honestly, gotta tip your hat to UConn and what they are. able to accomplish back-to-back years, which I think they said has not been done since Florida in like '06, '07, I believe
Yep.
was
The
the
Joakim
year.
Noah team.
hmm And so now Dan Hurley, the coach, back-to-back national championship winner. I mean, you really got to respect the culture that he's instilled with that program and tip my cap to him and that coaching staff and really just the UConn basketball, both sides, right? Both the men's and women's getting to the Final Four. It's just UConn is a basketball school through and through. Um, and yeah, it today's game though, Matt. I mean, just to get into it, you could feel Zach Edey's presence, like you said. Maybe not. We're not going to call him Shaq or anything, but the size and the presence that he does have on the floor commands respect every single time, every single possession on both ends too. He finished the game. He only had two blocks that came early, but you could really tell after those kind of two blocks, UConn kind of had to shift their game plan of just attacking him downhill. So you look at the box score. I mean, he had 37 points, 10 rebounds. I mean, Purdue only had 60 points. So that'll tell you just numbers wise what kind of production he means to that squad. But you could definitely tell how he was, I believe, the back-to-back player of the year, right, in men's college basketball. So props to Zach Edey, but man, this UConn Huskies squad, the experience and just so balanced, I thought, offensively, and such a good game plan adjustment in that second half to kind of take Zach Edey out of it for a little bit when UConn did go on that stretch run where they really, I mean, it was a 6 point game at the half, and then they blew it to double digits and were able to maintain that for pretty much the rest of the game. So I really thought it just came down to the veteran playmaking and shot making, overall talent, whatever you want to say. UConn, you could tell, was just a better team out there today. Those five starters, man. I know Diarra had a good game from the bench as well, but really those main five starters, equally contributing, hitting big shots too. And I think that was the biggest difference if you want to talk about it from a basketball standpoint, Matt. It was the shooting. I mean, they hit their open shots when they needed to in that second half. And just the offense, you could kind of tell, was much more balanced, right? You can't just focus on one guy or take away one action. They had it's like I'm not gonna say they're the Golden State offense, but you could it's similar to the constant moving, the screens, off ball, on ball, the cohesiveness of that team. You could tell that they played together for a while, and the veteran leadership and experience kind of displayed in that second half where their offense was flowing in the half court in transition. Overall, just the better team, and the better team won tonight. So that was my take on that, Matt. I'm not sure what you saw, but why don't you chime in?
That's interesting that you bring up the shot making, because I'll go to the other side and say Purdue's lack of shot making really hurt them, I thought, when UConn made that push. Right? They're hanging around first half, you keep it close, and then the second half it's like, push all your chips in the middle and see what happens. But UConn, they made the adjustment and they kind of frustrated Zach Edey just for a little bit, right? He had that strong start. And then the middle of the game, they kind of took him away. And then he came on, later, finished with 37 points. But a lot of it was, you could say, quote unquote, garbage buckets, where it's like, they're up big. They're just not going to contest a shot, whatever. They'll just give them the bucket. But when they made that run, it was UConn's defense that I thought was the difference, even more so than their shot making, which was very timely, like you mentioned. UConn, like, everything was going through Zach Edey on offense for Purdue, but I noticed that their defensive pressure on ball, and even when Zach Edey touches the ball in the post, they weren't just letting Klingon go one on one, right? Zach Edey kind of asserted himself early, That was kind of the battle of the top bigs, for the NBA draft, you could say. But he was winning that, and they made the adjustment where they weren't just double teaming him, but they were changing up how they were double teaming. I noticed sometimes they trap early, sometimes they bring a late trap, but they're always bringing a second guy, getting the ball out of his hands. And then from there, you could say Purdue is playing 4-on-3, but that's where it's like your supporting cast has to help you and make open shots. And UConn was telling them I think that's exactly what they wanted at that point. Zach Edey was dominating. He's gonna do his thing, but let's see if these other guys can make big shots. I don't think anybody really had that Robin-esque role for Purdue's. And, when you got a balanced attack for UConn offensively, where all five starters, you could say, are contributing, initiating the offense. Yeah, that's why this team goes on 30-0 runs, right? They're just lethal on both ends. So I thought Dan Hurley, great job coaching, making that defensive adjustment on Edey to give him a little bit of a problem inside, and then you just let your athletes take over. I really like Stephon Castle from UConn. He's a true freshman. Dude is going to be, I think he's going to be a good player. And eventually, whenever he goes to the NBA, I like his game. Tristan Newton won most outstanding player coming back from that championship team last year. So there was a nice mix of veterans coming back, but also new guys. Castle, and then even Diarra, guys off the bench. Cam Spencer, another key role player. So just a really, really balanced attack. But everything started for me on the defensive end and getting the ball out of Zach Edey's hands. That was so huge to me that Purdue just could not they could not buy a shot. Everything was from the free throw line if they got fouled. But yeah, when you play championship teams like UConn, you got to play a perfect game to beat them. And Purdue just didn't have enough tonight. It was Zach Edey, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I like the point you brought up there, Matt. I think when I was watching it, I didn't really. You're the defensive head when it comes to our sports stuff, so I'm just seeing the buckets go in for
You're an
UConn and the
offensive guy. I'm a
lack
defensive guy.
the lack of offense on Purdue's end. Maybe that's what I was trying to say. But yeah, thanks for bringing up that point. And just interesting. I think the championship games on both the men's and women's side, a little bit of a similar vibe in the sense, just foreshadowing ahead, right? You have the one big name in Zach Edey on the women's side, the big name in Caitlin Clark. And, when you're able to kind of disrupt either their flow or, I think the more talented team definitely came out on both ends. So, I mean, we'll get
I
into
agree.
the women's championship game in a little bit. But first, we got to hit on the women's Final Four, Matt, which also had some really good games as well. So, as expected, South Carolina was able to take care of business against NC State, who, the lady, is it game? Are they the Gamecocks? No, 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 no. That's what am I thinking of?
Yeah, South Carolina
Try,
Gamecocks.
okay, not the game. Wolfpack. Sorry, the Lady
Yeah,
Wolfpack
NC
of
State.
NC State. They had a good run as well, also making the Final Four. But yeah, South Carolina just too much for them, talent wise. So South Carolina takes care of business. We both saw that one coming. The real juicy one where we both agreed, it could have gone either way. You got the prediction right. I wouldn't have been surprised either way. I don't think you would have either. But Iowa does edge out UConn in the Final Four in a thriller, honestly. Great game. It was a battle the whole way, Matt. And we got to, first of all, start with that, I guess, controversial end possession of the offensive call being called on Aaliyah Edwards, moving screen, turnover. And yeah, Twitter went nuts or X went nuts, right? So just first of all, Matt, your take on the call itself. Did you think it was an offensive foul?
Ooh, I was watching the clips on Twitter because I was in Japan, don't really have access to ESPN, but I'm seeing, oh, offensive foul is trending. What's going on? And then I see the clip. I don't know if I would have called that if I was a referee. Like that's just a very tough way to have a classic game be decided. And it was just so disappointing, I think, because even Gino said in his press conference, there were multiple cases where he was saying Iowa kind of they were doing the same thing, but they weren't getting the call. So it's like, why in that situation does that call get blown? Or the whistle get blown, you could say. Um, if you're gonna call it one way the whole game, just keep it that way. If you're gonna call it an offensive foul in the beginning of the game, that's fine. At least both teams know what to expect, and you can adjust to how the ref is calling the games with how you're screening and whatever. But from what it sounds like, and maybe I didn't really hear from the Iowa side, but from what I heard from Gino's first conference, it wasn't one sided, I guess, with that last call. So would I have called that if I was a ref? No, because I would have wanted to see the ball, the last shot with Paige Beckers down by one. If she misses, Iowa wins. If she makes it, obviously UConn wins. Like that's how you want those games to be decided. The best player on one team with the ball in their hands to win the game, you let that dictate. Unless it is so blatantly obvious that it was an offensive foul, which it wasn't. Like I was looking at it. Yeah, I'm not a basketball, technician and expert, but it wasn't enough to definitively say that was an offensive foul or a moving screen. So no, to answer your question, no, I would not have called it. I did not like that call because I wanted to see Paige Beckers hit the game winner and go to the championship.
I agree. And not to sound like a broken record from when we talk about officiating in the NFL or anything, but that's what we say all the time, right? It's just be consistent, whether it's the NFL, whether it's an umpire, with their strike zone. We just want
Oh, don't get me started on
consistency,
that.
right? I know we're not going to get to that just yet, but it's really just about consistency, at least from a fan perspective. And I thought that the refereeing, not only in this Final Four, but we can get to the championship game a little bit later, just not consistent. And that's to me the most frustrating thing because I think overall the women's basketball game, it's even more physical. Maybe or at least at the college level, is more physical than the NBA. Like if you watch them, like they're getting hit in the face.
The NBA is not physical in the regular
Exactly.
season.
And so they're getting hit in the face. They're falling over each other. The refs are just letting it go. Like there's blood coming out of players' noses and mouths. And, for the most part, they're letting them go. And then you have something like that where I thought on the replay, it depends on the angle that you got it at, Matt. If you're looking straight, from the side, like if you're sitting at half court, looking, you can kind of see, Aaliyah Edwards. She's kind of sliding. Honestly, in real time on that replay, you can see it. But if you look at the other replay, where it's kind of, you're looking at her from a side view where she's kind of looking at you. You don't see that slide. So that is the one that's been going around to Twitter or X, and you can't really see her moving. To me, still in that moment though, I agree with you. You can't make that call with the game on the line, with more ratings than ever, right? In women's college basketball. So you just hate to see it go down like that. Two superstars, two juggernauts of the sport, for it to come down to a borderline call. Okay, I could see it go either way, honestly. But if it's like you said, if it's not definitive, can't be making that call in that situation. Nevertheless, it is what it is, and Iowa was able to escape pretty poor shooting performance, honestly, from Caitlin Clark, at least from three. I mean, 3 of 11 is not good for her. She did finish with 21 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. So she's still going to do it all. But Yeah, it was a close one. Unfortunately, I didn't get the right pick. At least you got the right pick there. Um, but moving on to the championship game, Matt, and this one, really did feel like Caitlin Clark. It was all coming together, and the undefeated South Carolina team, and it was a good game. Caitlin Clark came out on fire, just absolutely torching South Carolina from the jump. I think she had around 20-ish points or something by the end of the first half.
18 points.
Oh, in the first quarter, she had 18 points, huh?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah. So she came out, yeah, on fire. You could tell she was getting to her spots, getting the looks that she wanted. But, Dawn Staley, that's why she's one of the goats of just women's basketball in general. You want to talk about coach or player, right? But that's why she is so good and why she was also in the NBA for so long. Or right? Yeah, she was with oh no, I'm thinking of never mind. I'm thinking of
Was she an NBA player?
no. She was a WNBA
Yeah.
WNBA. Yeah,
Uh,
because well she was on the actually I don't know if she was a WNBA player, but she was on that Olympic team with like Lisa Leslie and um like way back in like I don't know if it was the 80s or 90s. I need to look this up now.
80s. Maybe
Yeah.
the 90s? Lisa Leslie, I mean, she's not that old, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah. It must have been in the 90s. Well, anyway, she was a great player as well. That's all I'm trying to say. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so going to the game itself, Matt, you could just kind of tell to me the overall outcome was more of a factor of honestly South Carolina having better athletes, just as well coached as Iowa, but a little bit more offensive talent as well. I thought what's her name? Camila Cardoso, she was
Camila
just
Cardoso.
yeah, dominant on the boards. You could tell late in the game. And then the two freshmen, for Wiley and Johnson stepping up huge off the bench to help contribute as well. Pow Pow hit big shots, and they could just match Caitlin Clark on the offensive end. Um, and it to me, it just really did come down to honestly, I think Caitlin Clark just kind of ran out of gas in the second half, Matt. I don't know how much you were able to see of the actual game, but they had adjusted. South Carolina were able to throw bodies at her constantly. Um, I believe Raven Johnson kind of was huge, especially at the end of the first half. Got the two big steals, and she got her revenge from Caitlin Clark basically not guarding her last year from the 3 point line. So overall, yeah, just South Carolina, similar to UConn, too good, too talented, and just overwhelmed Iowa and Caitlin Clark. And I just really like how they defended her in the second half. Nothing was easy, everything contested, and it just seemed like when Caitlin Clark didn't have it going, Iowa they hung in there as best as they could, but just couldn't keep up with the pace of South Carolina, Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to throw back to a point that you made about how to defend Caitlin Clark because I think South Carolina, yeah, they're the better team, but they really did put on an exhibition, really from the last three quarters of the game. And I think it goes back to when they played West Virginia. That was when you were saying, oh, I think West Virginia found the blueprint on how to guard Caitlin Clark. I think, South Carolina, I'm assuming they watched film on all these games that they played on their run, but the ball pressure was just hellacious. Like she had no space. She had to work for every shot. Obviously, Raven Johnson was the key, cog in that, right? Her defensive pressure. But man, like everybody, not even just Caitlin Clark, but it was like the other four guys or ladies on the court. Like everybody was just getting harassed. They were really struggling, I thought, to get into any sort of kind of rhythm. So I think that goes to your credit, Don Staley. That's a hell of a coaching job. But outside of the defense, right? Raymond Johnson, kind of the unsung MVP. I don't know if you would say somebody had a good game when they go 1 of 11 from the field, and you could say they made a difference in the game because that's exactly what she did. So hats off to her. That's a terrific performance and a bounce back performance, really, from last year when she was kind of she got the Ben Simmons treatment, you could say, on offense. But one thing that really stood out stat wise to me and really play as well, how deep South Carolina is. I mean, 37-0 in bench points is absurd. It like if you just put that in a context, 37-0, that is ridiculous. So that tells me how balanced, how deep this team is. They go a solid nine ladies deep. And it's not like, oh, they're nine deep, but you got like 4 or 5 scores. Nah, like all of them can kind of put the ball in the basket when their number is called. And you look on the bench, right? 19 for Johnson, even 9 for Wiley. I mean, that's already 28 points, 2 guys off the or 2 ladies off the bench. So just the depth of South Carolina was too much. And you already touched on this point earlier. The better team, I guess, I think we can kind of safely conclude that the better team is going to win. Whether the one team has a dominant superstar, but it's a team game. And whoever has the better team is ultimately going to win. Unless the superstar is just out of the world good, meaning like you're LeBron James 2015 Cavs game 3 good. Like you have to be that good to beat a dominant powerhouse team. So unless you're not at that level, most of the time, I would say the better team is going to win. And in both championships, I think that was the case. And we kind of saw a similar storyline, you could say, with the games playing out.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just to correct myself, so Don Staley did play in the WNBA for 8 years and was an all-star in 5 of those years. So yeah, definitely dominant in the WNBA as well. She was in college in the 80s or late 80s or early 90s. So yeah, it felt like Caitlin Clark really needed to duplicate that first quarter for 3 quarters, maybe, for Iowa to have come out on top. But it did seem to me just, she really does everything. And just, I know she gets compared to Steph all the time, right? Just from the shooting, the range, but it really does feel like that 2015 Golden State team where you know everything really kind of does run through Caitlin Clark. They're always trying to get her the ball, and she doesn't have like a Robin necessarily that can also shoot. Like her. It's always after a rebound. Okay, we got to find. She touches the ball every single time. In the half court.
Well, if I was Iowa, I would make it a point too.
No, but yeah. So I'm just saying, there's no. It really is all on her shoulders, right? I know they have good. They had good veteran pieces around her as well that they know how to play in their system. But man, the load that she was able to carry this whole year, I mean, you just got to tip your cap to her. So while we are speaking about Caitlin Clark, Matt, um, we want to talk about legacy. She is going to be the solidified number one pick in later the WNBA draft. That's pretty much been confirmed by Indiana, right? So if we want to talk about legacy, obviously she's only been at the college level, Matt, but I really think it's so good for the evolution of women's basketball. Obviously, inspiring young girls, young boys, really feeling like anyone can have a chance to be great. And it's just so good to see that. And the numbers, to me, Matt, that's the biggest thing. I think they they drew what 18.7 million viewers in their national championship game, which is just absurd. For almost really any sporting event, let alone a women's college basketball championship game. So, I mean, her legacy has been cemented, at least on the college level. She has to be one of the GOATs of college, right? I know, uh, think about Stewie, you think about Maya Moore in recent years, right? She's solidified herself at least as an icon for the game. You can debate, the goat or whatnot, because she never got the ring, but she was always, the leading scorer. That stuff can be debated, but there's no doubt she has left her stamp on the game, and it's exciting because she's only in college. This is only her collegiate level. I'm really excited to see what how she can affect the pros map. But yeah, your take on her college legacy.
Well, I mean, she's definitely, I mean, top five, I would say for sure, of GOATs in the or not WNBA, women's college basketball era. For me, it's hard to, yeah, she has the numbers, but man, I don't know. I watched Maya Moore in her prime at UConn. She was different, man. She was so good. I mean, and then like you mentioned, Brianna Stewart, Maya Moore walks out the door. In comes this other girl, Brianna Stewart, and she almost replicates the career that Maya Moore had. But the argument could be made that those teams were a lot more balanced, well-rounded with better players than Caitlin Clark did. So I guess I could see an argument there, but I don't know. Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, it's a tough duo to overtake, in my opinion. But Caitlin Clark, had she won, had Iowa beat South Carolina, I would have hands down said that would have been the greatest championship run, maybe in any sport. Like think about what she had to go through. Like you have the pressure of winning. She delivers a number one seed. She beats Angel Reese and LSU to get to the Final Four. And then she takes down UConn, another juggernaut, with you could say the player that matches up to her hype status as well as her skills in Paige Beckers. And then she would have gone on to beat an undefeated South Carolina team that only Iowa beat last season too. So what are they like 60 something and one in their past 2 years and you beat them? Like that might be the single greatest championship run I've ever seen in sports. But she was one game just a little bit short. But I think that right there cemented her GOAT legacy even more. Right. Maybe she's not the best for me, but the fact that she was able to go on this run really shows what kind of special talent she is going to be. And I know Diana Taurasi, I think she was the one that was kind of, she was making some kind of comments about, can her game translate in the WNBA? And I mean, I'll be honest, she has a point, right? The WNBA girls or ladies are, you know, adults. You're not playing against 18, 19-year-old ladies that are, just growing into their bodies, right? So is she going to have growing pains? I mean, yeah, absolutely. What player doesn't have growing pains when you go to the next level? But do I think her game is going to translate? Yeah, absolutely. Because she's revolutionized, you could say, the game of basketball. She has that Steph impact where it's like, yeah, people recognize her as a lethal shooter from deep. And there really wasn't a lady that had that type of range. Yeah, we see it in the NBA with Steph, and you got all these college shooters on the men's side, but really it's Caitlin Clark that's kind of stretching that 3-point line out just a little bit farther. And 4 or 5 years from now, you're gonna have girls bombing the same way that she was doing in college. So yeah, I think her game will translate very well in the NBA. But she has to go to the right team. And Indiana, they're the number one pick for a reason. That's all I gotta say. So I think it might take maybe a year or two, build pieces around her, but I think she'll be fine in the long run.
I agree. And something I want to touch on with her at the next level is, yeah, I was gonna say I think it is gonna take some time because almost, just like Steph, where yeah, they could shoot both in college, right? Steph was kind of that shooter, but really didn't make his breakout to that all-star level until he was several years into the league. And I think Indiana is just going to have to be patient. I think that's the number one thing to think about because honestly, here's kind of my prediction of what's going to happen. She's going to have all the hype, right? There's no doubt about it. The shooting is going to be there, playmaking is going to be there, but I do think the athletes are going to give her a little bit of a harder time. Every night you're going to see that on-ball pressure, that high-level athleticism. Defenders can move side to side, come over every single screen, and that's how they're going to game plan around her. So I think it's there's going to be some growing pains for sure, but as she gets used to the league, the pace, the athletes around her, it's gonna open everything up. And honestly, I do think her legacy or her game at the next level is going to be honestly a little bit more there's not really a perfect comp, I think, for her, but I think the shooting is going to stay, but I think, and she averaged 9 assists, Matt. I really do think that if Indiana is able to play a style of basketball that fits her game, that she might average double digit assists every night in the WNBA. The reason I say that is because when you do watch her play, yeah, she pulls up from deep, she's able to hit the three, but she's really a playmaker. I mean, she averaged just under 9 assists a game at the college level. So, you're imagining better shooters, better athletes around her at the WNBA level. Just the gameplay is better. And, Aaliyah Boston is there. I think she's going to get a lot of touches inside off a pick and roll if they're going to be the 1-2 combo that they're running. So I do think she's going to be more of a playmaker, honestly, at least at first until she kind of establishes how she's going to get her shot off at the next level. And we did touch on this, Matt, last week, but in her game itself, the two things I really want to see from her, obviously, one, we talked about it, the intermediate slash mid range game. You can tell she's still not quite comfortable, pulling up from mid range or taking the floaters. Obviously, I think that's going to change. I think she's going to develop it and become lethal from those areas as well. Because, then you're a pro athlete. You don't got to worry about classes and all that stuff. It's your job, right? To go out and work on your game all the time. I don't think that'll be a problem. The other thing I am curious to see is actually if they tinker with her shot form at all, because I don't know if you could tell, Matt, she really likes going to the left because she kind of pulls. It's not Lonzo, it's not that drastic,
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say, like, I did notice that.
it is definitely noticeable to where she pulls from her right hip side across her body to get her shot off, right? And I think you can tell she's always trying to get that step back left, or step back to where she can pull from that way. And the WNBA defenders and coaching staff, they're going to pick up on that. I want to see if there's any minor tweaks or tinkering to her form, to where she can coming off a screen to the right or step to the right, and I think that'll open up even more open shots for her, because then you can't just stay on her right hip all the time, right? That's the other thing. I am curious to see if that gets adjusted, because if not, I think that's going to be the game plan guarding her at the next level. But we will see. Obviously, it's going to bring a lot of excitement to the WNBA. We'll probably watch a little bit more games as well, a little bit more coverage just to see how she's doing at that next level. But yeah, really good tournament for her, and just the legacy she left. Got to tip your cap to her. No matter what happens on the next level, we can both agree she's changed, not just women's college basketball, but really the college basketball landscape forever, and how it's looking, Matt. So I know we spend a lot of time on college. We'll keep it short on the NBA, but before we get off of it, Matt, it's something that I was kind of thinking about today with the whole UConn men's basketball team. It it kind of poses an interesting NIL question to me now, Matt. Obviously we also heard today John Calipari moving on from Kentucky to Arkansas, the one and done, high level players he's able to bring in. I think now that there is a message from Kentucky, it's that that's great, but we expect to do well in the tournaments. So to me, that's a kind of a message to college coaches out there. Look at Dan Hurley, right? He's not going to have. I mean, he has NBA draft caliber players, but not going to be this one and done mentalities. Um, and I think that shift, Matt, is we might start to see it a little bit more because of the NIL now. And so, really before the NIL, you want to talk about Zion as really that era is the last ones with the true one and dones before NIL, Matt. There's no incentives to stay in school if you're gonna be or if you're gonna go to the NBA draft, right? First, early second, late second round pick guys. If you have that chance as a freshman, it's still worth it to leave. I'm talking about pre NIL, right? It's worth it to leave because you're gonna get paid. You're gonna get money, right? Now, I do think it's interesting because say you come in as a true freshman, you play, and you're, let's say, a late first round or a second round projected player. Now, the NIL does make it a little bit interesting to where you don't have to take that opportunity to go to that next level right away, right? Because now you can get paid and get paid to either develop, boost your draft stock, right? Um, and you're really taking a risk as a late first, early second rounder in the league, Matt. Because I want to take Austin Reeves, for example. Austin Reeves, he's a guy that was able to stay 4 years in college, develop his game, came in undrafted as a rookie, but his game was so polished that he was able to contribute to a winning team early, and he's able to get that 4 year, 5 year extension that you're really looking for. That's where the big money is now, right? So yeah, the rookie deals are great, but I think with NIL, if you're not going to get that lottery pick money, I think it's good because it's going to give colleges a chance to keep some of their star guys and build brands like Zach Edey, for example. If he leaves early, oh, he's just another big guy, but now two-time National Player of the Year. He's every year been able to gradually boost his draft stock with Purdue, and he's become associated with Purdue. His image, his brand was able to grow while still in college. Now it's going to transition, even if, maybe he is a late first, second round talent in the NBA's eyes, right? He's still going to have some kind of endorsements because of the legacy and the brand he was able to build for himself in college. So that's why I think, Matt, honestly, I think we're going to start to see a lot of, guys uh, not choose to go into the draft early and stay in college and stay, which is interesting because before I said, oh, the NIL, it's gonna, have all these guys hopping around and yada yada. But that was just a thought I had today. That it's the NIL is actually gonna improve the level of collegiate play because there's more incentive to stay in school now. I don't know if you had any take on that, but I that just popped
That
into my head.
that's interesting because I see where you're coming from, but I feel like your point is, and the counter argument I'm gonna make is your point is when these athletes are committed, they sign to a school, they play, and then they decide, do I go to the NBA or do I come back to school or do I transfer? But what about the guys that are in high school and then they're deciding on, do I go to college or do I go to the G League? Do I go overseas? Like that's where it's like, I think that's where the battle is right now because if you look at the upcoming draft, a lot of the top lottery guys are playing in the G League or overseas. So we have no idea who these dudes are. So if that's the current trend for guys to say, oh, if I want to be a top draft pick, I need to go in the G League or I need to go overseas and play in Europe or Australia. So how are they gonna get those talents to come to college? And I think a good start is Cooper Flag. He's coming to Duke next year. I think that's a great, he's got the publicity, he's got the brand, the name. That's a great start, but you need more than him. Like you need, you want the top, you could say maybe 6 out of 10 guys in the draft to be coming from a college program, not necessarily Europe or Australia. So that's my only thing. It's like your point makes sense once you're in college. Yeah, the NIL is really enticing for guys to stay, but you got to get them to come to college first. And a lot of guys now are picking to go overseas or go to the G League, and guys have proven that it's worked. I mean, I don't know, Luka's a bad example, but like Wembanyama, Jalen Green, guys like that have made an impact early in the league that have had success not going to college, you could say. So that's the battle. I think more the NIL thing is the battle with the overseas talent. How are they going to get them to come to college?
So my thing, Matt, is so you want to talk about Jalen Green, right? Scoot Henderson, for example, the
That's
most
another
recent
one.
product, right, from the G League. These guys, it's almost cemented that out of high school, they're going to be a lottery pick. If they go to college, you go to the G League, you go to the NBL like LaMelo, you're cemented from high school that you are going to be a lottery pick the next year, right? And so that's where I think the NIL is really good, and it's going to raise the collegiate level because those guys, it's not going to matter, right? Wherever they go, it really doesn't matter. I think, right? But if you really want to talk about Jalen Green, Scoot Henderson, for example, how many G League games do we watch? How many televised G League games? Even if it's the championship game, right? What's going to get more pull, the NCAA tournament or the G League playoffs, right? And so to me, it becomes I'm trying to make a differential between like if you're a lottery pick guy or a guy that's going to come in later. And the lottery pick guy, you can argue, yeah, maybe better for your professional development. You don't want to worry about classes and all that stuff. You go to the G League, you go overseas, you can start that professional mentality. But if you're about maybe building a brand, for example, like Cooper Flag, he's going to get way more attention, I think, at Duke than he would, going overseas. Because who's going to watch overseas games unless you're a Wembanyama, right? Who's going to watch G League games, even if it is the G League playoffs? I've never watched the G League playoff game. I've watched March Madness, right? I know Duke. So I think for him, it's great. It's going to be great for the Cooper Flag brand, right? So I think that is the route, players are going to have to choose. But if I'm the 40th or 50th recruit in my class in the nation, right? I'm going to college personally, because I don't know if my name is going to get marketed at the G League level. I don't know, what the talent is going to be like. I could get cut. If I get cut, then what, I have to just go overseas and try to work my way to NBA where you can go the college route, right? And even if it doesn't work out that first year, okay, I'll transfer somewhere else. I have a chance. I have 4 years to really build not only my, basketball development, but kind of my name and my brand to propel myself. So I'm someone at that next level. So that's just my take. I don't want to go too long into it, Matt. We can talk about this more later, but it's just something, and I really do think the NIL just it provides a lot of different options. Now with everything else, I think, yeah, maybe it's a good
It
thing.
definitely
Maybe it is a
does.
good thing. So,
Okay.
um,
Before we get off this subject, let me ask you about one player. What
okay,
about Bronny? What about Bronny?
yeah,
See,
okay.
like
So
Bronny had the hype, but you could say this season kind of ruined his draft stock a little
Right,
bit. So
right. So first
is
I'll
that
go.
a downfall?
So I was thinking we would talk about this later, but yeah, let's talk about it now. So Bronny, we do have to keep in mind he did have that. I believe it was a cardiac arrest. Definitely some kind of major heart concern. It was a scare. Thankfully he's made a full recovery to even come back to playing basketball. But let's be honest, Matt, Bronny himself is a completely different case study than you could argue almost any other college player ever, right? So the son of LeBron James, it he doesn't need to build his brand. I'll say that. He's almost like LaMelo where, these schools want them. They don't need to go looking to join schools, to join the G League, to join. The G League is wants Bronny. I guarantee you that. Overseas, they want him. College wants him to stay. USC is going to want him to stay. So Bronny, he can do whatever he wants, honestly, Matt. He's going to have that LaMelo Ball esque treatment where Bleacher Report, ESPN, all these social media pages, they don't care where he goes. He's going to get views. People are going to watch him. People are going to come to watch him just because he's Bronny James. I'm going to be honest. Um, I do think it's hard to judge him from a basketball standpoint off of this year because, I mean, you want to talk about the most important muscle, right? Your heart completely, you know, I don't know if it's collapsing or whatever, he went through. He did, collapse on the court and they had to treat him and everything. So that's a major thing to come back from. I don't know if, people are thinking about that necessarily, but if I was Bronny, I'll just say that he's going to have a little bit of an inside track to the NBA because of his name. And, there are teams in the league that are going to want to add Bronny James. I'll be honest, just for his name, because he's going to pull in marketing revenue for them. So there's definitely interest from the NBA standpoint. Basketball wise, is he ready? I couldn't tell you. I don't watch enough of his game to tell you if he's league ready yet. But I would say, hey, if you have the opportunity to go declare for the draft, talk to some scouts, talk to some teams, get kind of a feeling of where they're at. And if you don't like it, come back. By all means, why wouldn't you do that? Right.
I think that's what
I,
he's doing, right? He's in the portal and declaring for the draft at the same time.
exactly. So I think he's playing it completely right. I don't think I need to doubt, however, Bronny James is going to play it. He has a wealth of resources at his disposal. Even if you want to just say, hey, I'll go talk to my dad about this, right? Who else better to talk to about getting an honest view of the pro landscape? The guy that's been in it for 20 years, 21 years, right? So it, I, I think he's playing his cards right from a business perspective, but he doesn't got to worry about building his brand. I'll say necessarily. His brand has been built. His brand was built the day he was born. He decided he was going to play basketball. So yeah, I mean that's just how it is, right? That's just the truth of it. Yeah. What did you think of that though?
Well, I think yeah, your points are spot on, but I just think it was interesting just because of the season that he had, where it's like, well, here's an example of someone that coming out of high school, putting the cardiac arrest thing aside, was like top recruit, one and done player for sure. But then, things happen. He comes back, coming off the bench, doesn't really start, plays on a lousy, underachieving USC team. So really, he kind of hurt his draft stock. And then you hear mock drafts saying, oh, he's a late second round pick at best now. So it's like, hmm. In the case of, I guess you could say my point, where it's like, do you go straight to the league or do you go the college route? What if he went to the G League or something? Would that have played out differently for him? Maybe with less publicity. With his game now, it's like he had the cardiac arrest. People are kind of judging him what they see just purely on TV and on the court, not really considering that yeah, this guy had to kind of come back from a serious issue from his body. And the fact that he's even playing basketball is nothing short of a miracle, I think. So, can he hide? Maybe say he hides himself in the G League. So it's like, oh, yeah, we don't really know what's going on. But, he's showing flashes, but he'll still be a top draft pick. But he's constantly on TV. Everyone's following him around. You kind of see the day-to-day things and game by game play at USC. So that's the only thing. But you make a point where he's different because when your dad is arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, you're probably gonna have cameras outside your house every time when you wake up, when you just walk to class, you're gonna have an interview or something. So I guess that's an exception, but that is an example of someone that went into college and you could say hurt their draft stock
Right. I'll
with their
I
play.
do think, Matt, that I'll say if I'm Bronny and if scouts are telling me, even if I'm a second round pick, even if I go undrafted but can make an NBA roster, I'm never gonna play the first year, but I'll be on the bench. I would declare for the draft, honestly, because then I honestly weirdly think it might help him because we saw what the pressure can kind of do to a lot of hype around draft picks. Take Lonzo, for example, right? Such a highly touted pick out of high school, out of college, even, and doesn't really find that success. And then kind of the narrative shifts on him to where is he a bust? Is, did Magic make one of the biggest draft blunders of all time? To really, he had to get out of the spotlight of LA, find his groove in New Orleans, then play his way into a contract with Chicago. So it's almost like being away from the spotlight really helped Lonzo grow his game and build his value that way. I think if Bronny is able to go to a team, you know, and he doesn't really play, I think that's almost better for him because he'll get to develop at the next level. He'll get to see, the pace of play around him. And it'll maybe he can turn out, we have seen players, uh, maybe not as recently, but I'm thinking like a Kawhi, right? Who started off as really a defender. He's known for his defense, developed the offensive game, into becoming the two-way superstar that he is today. I think Bronny can do something similar where he focuses on just getting on the court somehow. If it's going to be 3-and-D, okay, whatever his role is going to be, but getting some minutes, developing his game, I think he can become, a star that route. So I would say if I'm Bronny and I can get to a team, I would go because you're not going to play. You can develop in the G League or whatever it is and kind of have a little bit of the pressure off your shoulders and really just grow as a basketball player. So that's what I would do if I was him.
And it helps that whatever team drafts Bronny's, you could say maybe you get LeBron on the team too. So
That's possible.
you
That's
got
definitely possible.
your dad with you every single day.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Matt, that was a lot of college basketball talk. I know we have a couple other things to get to. We'll keep the NBA talk short though. So I do want to just get to the Lakers really quick. They are currently sitting as the 9 seed. They play Golden State tomorrow. That's going to be a big game. I'm not worried about them at least clinching the play-in. Um, and
They are in the play-in at
so they are in
worst.
the at worst they are in the play-in. Denver and the Timberwolves are sitting neck and neck for the 1 seed. We're just gonna see how things shake out. I'm not too worried about whoever they play, honestly, Matt. I still wouldn't like it to be Denver at all possible. But looking, first to play in, whether they're the 8 seed, whether they're the 9 seed, I feel pretty good about any of the teams they're going to play in a one and done scenario. Um, yeah. So I'll just keep it short with that because it's really this last week coming up. It is the big week. So we'll kind of sit on it a little bit, right? For now. But hey, as long as we're healthy, knock on wood, I like our chances. And next week we'll really dive deep into kind of the play-in and NBA stuff. So Sorry if you came for an NBA talk. It's a lot of college basketball. We'll get to NBA stuff next week. But yeah, just to get on our last big topic here, Matt. We'll get into some baseball. Obviously, your Yankees looking really, really good right now. I know it is early, but just to let you get some of the excitement off your chest, how are you feeling about the Yankees this year?
Oh, like I'm like a little girl texting my like girlfriend when it comes to me and Wade texting about the Yankees now. It's like we text every day, every single game they play. It's like positive vibes around Yankee world. It's shocking. I will say I am shocked because 2 weeks ago I was on this pod saying, I don't know, there's a lot of what ifs, a lot of things have to go right for this team to do well. And yes, it's early. It's 11 games in, but there are some signs of growth and development and resurgence, which is the key, I think. Um, just the way the Yankees have been playing. If you would have told me, okay, but they won today, but to their first 10 games, they would be 8-2, and they're playing at Houston, at the Diamondbacks, defending NL champs. Obviously, Houston is a house of horrors for everybody. And the Blue Jays, who are a solid team that's going to be in the playoff hunt. If you would have told me we would be 8-2, I would be like, yeah, right. I would say 500 at best because you split against the Astros and then you win one series at home and then you lose to the D-backs on the road 2 out of 3 because they're the defending NL champs. I would have been okay. We're 5-5, we're showing or whatever. But 8-2 right out of the gate against three quality teams. Obviously 9-2 after today's recording, playing the Marlins. But man, the way that these guys are playing, it's like it's a different guy every night. Going back to the Diamondback series, classic Aaron Judge game. He has been very quiet this year, but he's had that one game where he said, y'all forget who I am, right? I am the home run champion in the AL for a reason. I'm an MVP. I can put this team on my back. And I've showed it in the previous seasons. And in that game, he played Superman, right? He got a little help from Alex Verdugo in that game, hitting a clutch home run to kind of extend the game at that point. But, Aaron Judge has been quiet, but he had a moment. I'm not going to panic just yet. Um, but yeah, once he gets going, look out. But man, the guys that I'm really encouraged with, Anthony Volpe, he leads the AL in batting. Do I think that's going to stay the course? Probably not. But to go from being a pedestrian Mendoza line hitter to now, yeah, he's hitting over 400 through his first 11 games. Can he hit a 300 season for this year? Maybe. Honestly, with his approach, yeah, I think he can. Totally different hitter. Giancarlo Stanton, yeah, it's a small sample size, but his first few games, he struck out like 13 of 22 at bats to start the year. But the last couple games, he's obviously had a grand slam yesterday, 2 hits today. He had another 3-hit game against the Blue Jays. So if he can do that, not saying he has to hit a home run every game, but it's like the power is going to come. But I just need to see some kind of consistency. Like I can't just have you be a three-way hitter, meaning you hit a home run, you strike out, or you walk. Like you got to be able to put together some base hits, some doubles. This is the Stanton that we need, right? He's not going to hit, 500 over the course of the season, but can he put together a multi-hit game every, 3 to 4 games maybe? That's huge for me because you protect Judge, you protect Soto, Rizzo. I mean, he just makes this lineup so much more complete. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. Alex Verdugo, slow start, but he's had his moments. He had a nice game today against the Marlins. Nestor Cortez had a nice game today on the mound. Marcus Stroman had questions about him, but so far we're seeing the first half Marcus Stroman from last year, where he was an all-star pitcher, and I believe he has no earned runs through 2 starts so far, so that's a good thing. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is injuries. And we suffered a big one with Jonathan Loizica, one of our top late inning arms, out for the season, forearm strain. his Yankee career is probably done because he's a free agent. But that's the only real downside you could say, really, because we're playing small ball, which is a fresh sight to see. Even today's game, for example, there was a runner on first and second. We got the 9-hole hitter up, sacrifice bunt. Gleyber Torres comes up, hits a fly ball to the right field line. Right approach. We don't score on a sac fly, but you know what? It was the right approach, but a good decision by the coach because you know why? You got Juan Soto coming up, and you can give him a chance to get a base hit. Anytime you got runners in scoring position with Judge and Soto coming up, give him a chance. And well, Soto, he hit a home run, but like just the little things like that, moving guys over, taking the simple approach, and then letting your superstars be superstars sometimes. That's what it takes. So I'm liking what I see in Yankee land, but I was telling Wade we need arms. We need arms. Garrett Cole comes back hopefully by June 1st. But I think, with this team starting off hot, we're definitely gonna need some late inning arms in the bullpen. So I was throwing that rumor out there. We should get Devin Williams from the not the Blue Jays, the Brewers, former All-Star closer. I believe he's in a contract year, but he's hurt right now. So maybe you can buy low on him and then just have him as a rental and you have Clay Holmes and him in the back end. That would be pretty nice. But we'll worry about that come the trade deadline. But right now, this team is looking good right now. It's looking good.
Yeah, like I said, Matt, Yankees team feels a little bit different. Volpe, I think if Volpe, honestly, 300 would be outstanding. But even if he hits even the high 280s, he cools down that much. That's a huge piece of production in the middle to bottom half of your order. Yeah, he's on a tear. Really happy to see him with his success. We know he has a glove. I mean, gold glove as a rookie. So you know what he provides there. He has a speed. I know he steals a good amount of bases too. So really good to see. And yeah, can't I think the Juan Soto in
The
pinstripes, it
energy,
really
man, the
is
crowd love. It's a mutual
it
love right
is a
now
match made in heaven. I think with the short porch, we saw it today. He got his first home run, I believe. So,
at
or
Yankee
at
Stadium.
Yankee Stadium, sorry. Um, to that short porch and right. And yeah, I do think it is such a good fit. And Cashman needs to hurry up and sign him to a long-term extension as soon as he possibly can.
Well, I don't think
I definitely
he's
think
not gonna sign. Like he's gonna test free agency, but I don't care what the number is. Just hand him a blank check and just tell him write whatever you want on this contract because you are not leaving this stadium.
I definitely agree with that. You cannot let him go. I think you're gonna see the effect that he has, and he's already had it, right? Like you said,
Mhm.
with the energy from the fans and just from a pure baseball perspective. So definitely good to see him there. And yeah, I do think you guys will only get better, barring injury, knock on wood, right? Hopefully you guys get even healthier and that'll be exciting to talk about the Yankees in
You
the
got
postseason.
DJ coming back, the Martian coming back later, maybe July, August. Obviously Garrett Cole. So help is on the way.
Yeah, so I'll just get to my Dodgers really quickly. Then Matt, off of that, it is, yeah, I mean, pretty good on my end as well. No complaints here. Um, Shohei has been outstanding recently. He is, I mean,
Yeah,
currently,
he's on
Matt,
a heater right now.
he's on a heater. Five straight multi-hit games. Hit his third home run of the season today. His OPS is above 1,000, so that's great. Mookie still OPS of 1,300, which is insane. He already has a 1.5 WAR on the season, which is kind of insane if you think about it. Top of the lineup, I mean, these guys are on fire. Max Muncy, similar to Stanton, I don't know if the average is gonna sit above 250. If it hovers at 250, that would be amazing. I don't think it's gonna, but that's a bright spot for us right now. Teoscar Hernandez has been just a huge bright spot for us against lefties who we really struggled with last year, but still looking for a little bit more production out of the bottom. Gavin Lux, Chris Taylor, Kike still really haven't found their footing quite yet on the year. So hoping, those guys can start to pick it up, at least get to above the Mendoza line, or is it Mendoza line? Yeah,
200.
above
200
that
is the Mendoza
200
line.
Mendoza line. Um, Weirdly enough, it's been Miguel Rojas. In the sparing games that he's played, he's hitting above 300. Austin Barnes in his 2 games hitting 500, which is I do not expect to last, by the way, and he's not going to get at bats because we just signed Will to the 10-year deal. But I mean, yeah, can't complain so far about the bats. I know they had a couple, games. It is baseball. It's a 162 season game. You're not going to have it every single game. But for the most part, yeah, really liking what I'm seeing out of these Dodger bats. On the flip side, the pitching, yeah, this is it's still too early to be concerned for me, Matt. I think Tyler Glasnow, he's gonna be solid for us throughout the course of the year. He does get touched up, every once in a while. He has all the stuff, though. The stuff is there. He looks good in that sense. Yamamoto, he's had bounce back starts now. This last start was especially impressive. He was in trouble early. I think he had bases loaded twice in the first 2 innings, was able to get out of it clean. No earned runs. The strikeouts are getting there. Seems like he's getting a little bit more comfortable working out of trouble, which is good to see. Bobby Miller, who I said, oh, maybe Dark Horse Cy Young, he got touched up in his second game. So, we're going to have ups and downs, I think, with the pitching. The bullpen, for the most part, has been really solid with our key reliever guys. And similar to you guys, Matt, just looking to get healthier. Hoping Tony Gonsolin gets back sometime later this year. Clayton Kershaw comes back later this year. And also, Walker Buehler is scheduled to come back soon, hopefully within the next month. So, I mean, if you really think about it, Gavin Stone, Michael Grove have kind of been guys that are filling in. Brian Yarbrough is kind of these extended reliever guys for when they have pen days. But man, when we get back to full strength, I mean, we're gonna have Glasnow, Yamamoto. Paxton is a starter right now, who's actually on paper been our best pitcher number wise.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking. Then you have Bobby Miller to go along with Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonsolin, and Walker Buehler. That's 7 starting pitchers if we're at full strength. That's not even including Dustin May, who may hopefully he comes back sometime later this year. So I'm guessing, if we do get full strength, we're probably gonna look to trade one of those guys. Because it is just a plethora when we're at full strength. But it's a lot of good names that I'd like to see later this year. So we'll see how it kind of works out, Matt. But yeah, I think the bats are definitely going to carry this team for the most part, at least through the regular season, and hoping that we get healthy as the year goes on. And then we'll be the complete, we got the pitching, we got the batting, the fielding is going to be what it is. Hoping it improves throughout the
Yeah,
course of the season.
that's the key.
Yeah, I don't really know there. I think Gavin Lux has been better with his yips. Max Muncy, you just gonna have to take what you get from Max. Mookie, I'm not worried about because of the player and person that he is, the work ethic that he has. I think he'll be fine at shortstop. He'll be more than serviceable at short as the year goes on. So not worried. Plus, it helps to have, Gold Glover Freddie Freeman who can swallow up everything there at first base. So honestly, it really does help a lot. So he's going to help cover a lot of poor and errant throws over at first base. So good to have Freddie there on the receiving end. So yeah, overall good vibes. You know me, I don't get too high during April. Check back on me July, post All-Star break, August.
You
Um,
sound like a spoiled fan.
I am a completely spoiled fan, and I'm gonna relish in it as long as I can. So just praying on health as usual. Shohei is looking good. Still not talking about that the gambling thing until the investigation comes out. But yeah, Matt. So far it's been so good. Can't complain. All happy here. So yeah, I mean,
All right.
honestly, why don't we get to some of our quick hitters now? Why don't you start us off with our foolish fool day?
All right. Our foolish fool of the past week. We'll stick in the baseball theme, but we'll go with the MLB umpires, and I'll point out two specific games. Just so happens to involve both of our teams. I'll start with the Yankees. Angel Hernandez got to be the worst umpire in the league by far as an individual. I mean, I don't know if you guys see the clips on Twitter or social media, but there was multiple instances where he's calling balls that are down the middle, and then he's calling strikes that are two balls high.
You just
And
got
he's
to talk about the balk,
yeah,
Matt.
and then the balk, and then a pitcher steps off the rubber and throws a pitch, and he calls a strikeout to my guy in Gleyber Torres. Obviously, the Yankees are fuming, but a guy literally disengages from the rubber and gets credited for a strikeout. I mean, I just have no words with this guy. Yeah. I'm just happy it didn't cost us the game, but that was just a complete embarrassment by the MLB. But you could also make the case where involving your team, the umpire crew, I mean, did they want to play like a slip and slide game or something? Like what was the intention of playing a baseball game where there's puddles all over the field in Wrigley? I mean, you guys are playing like skip ball out there, like balls are just being booted around. I mean, it was just
There's
like
only way the Cubs are gonna get a win
it
on this,
looked like you're playing at Wet and Wild or something, like something crazy. Like how do you even allow guys to play in that condition? Not necessarily for like humor, but it's like more for player safety. It's like imagine if Shohei Ohtani was rounding the bases and he like twisted his ankle because it was wet. Like, do you know how pissed off like the league would be because you would lose a guy that brings in the market of viewership, and then obviously for the Dodgers' sake, that's your quote unquote best player. Like you just can't be putting players' safety out of in jeopardy like that. Like that's just a total embarrassment from the league. But the umpires have the right to call off the game, and they waited way too long to make that decision. So MLB, get your guys shit together with these umpires, man. Because if this happens in the postseason, we will not be happy. We will not be happy.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Matt. I'll get to our state of the 808. It is Max Holloway fight week. It is officially here. He's fighting Justin Gaethje for the BMF title. Yeah, I don't know, Matt. It'll be interesting for sure. To see how that kind of takes part. I guess you could say. I'm excited for it. He's gonna be facing a tall task in Justin Gaethje, man. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
different
tough.
styles of fighters going at it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's gonna be tough. Justin obviously has the power. I'm worried about this one. Luckily,
Yeah.
it's not in that featherweight division. It's not gonna affect his ranking in that spot, but just from a pure fight and Max fan perspective, I'm a little bit nervous. Justin is a top class fighter. I mean, Max looks bigger and stronger than he's ever looked. Looks like the weight, bulking has gone well for him in his camp so far. I'm just nervous, Matt. But yeah, I'll be watching this weekend. It's Saturday. I believe the main card starts at 4. So go tune in to watch Max. Give him your support. And hopefully I'm reporting on good news next week, man. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. But other than that's pretty much all I got. Why don't you round us out with our sports fact of the day?
Right. In honor of March Madness officially being done today, we'll go with a basketball fact. And in 2014, The Lady Huskies in UConn defeated Notre Dame 79-58, where they won a national title. And that was the second time a school has won both a men's and women's championship in the same year. Obviously, UConn was led on the women's side by Breanna Stewart, and on the men's side, the legend of Shabazz Napier. So UConn, dominant powerhouse in basketball at that time. And it just so happens that their championship is adding to that list today with another men's title and a Final Four appearance for the Lady Huskies this year. So all around great season of basketball for UConn this year.
All right, perfect. Sounds good. Well, that'll wrap us up for this pod, Matt. Like we said, next week we'll be back in heavy into our NBA talk, and we're gonna be like that for pretty much the rest of the playoffs. So as usual, look out for that. We will still be checking on the MLB stuff and any other news that pops up, but college basketball coming to a close. Time to focus on the professionals. So with that being said, as usual, everyone have a good week. We appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.